The shadow of inheritance. Truth isn't buried in graves. It's buried in blood. David Munro's life changed the day his mother died. Margaret Munro, the woman who raised him, who gave him everything, was gone. A quiet funeral. A few whispered condolences. Then silence, but sometimes silence screams louder than anything else. Margaret's attorney handed David an old box. Wooden, iron-lined, a strange symbol carved into its lid. Inside, there was a single letter. David, my name is Margaret, but I wasn't your birth mother. Your real mother's name was Eleanor Whitmore. I don't know why she gave you up. Maybe she didn't either. But now it's time. You must go to Cedar Hill. That place. It's in your blood. And when blood calls, it must be answered. David's hands trembled. Beneath the letter was a faded photograph. Edges burned. A woman, presumably Eleanor, holding a newborn baby. In the background stood an old wooden chapel, half swallowed by trees. Scrawled on the back, Whitmore Manor, Cedar Hill, 1985. David had never heard of Cedar Hill. It wasn't on Google, not on any GPS or modern map, but in an old regional atlas he found it, tucked deep inside the Monongahela forests of West Virginia. A town erased from records after 1992. That night, David couldn't sleep. In his dreams. He walked through forests and behind the trees. Something watched. The forgotten town. Some towns vanish from maps. Others vanish from memory. The road to Cedar Hill was like slipping into a forgotten dream. Cracked asphalt, fading road signs, and endless forests pressing against the narrow lanes like a closing fist. David drove in silence. No radio signal. No cell service. Only the rhythmic hum of tires on aging pavement and a strange pressure in the air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. At last, a crooked wooden sign appeared. Welcome to Cedar Hill, founded 1832. The paint was peeling. Something about the lettering looked off, as if it had been rewritten. He drove past rows of abandoned houses, windows shattered, yards overgrown. Time had devoured this place and left only bones. No people, no sound. Then he saw it. Whitmore Manor. It stood at the end of a crooked path, surrounded by decaying fences and blackened trees. An enormous house choked by ivy, its windows dark like blind eyes. And yet, something inside watched. Inside, dust danced in rays of dying light. Old portraits lined the walls, all bearing the same sharp cheekbones, deep eyes. His eyes ... In a study buried behind layers of dust and cobwebs, he found it. A journal. Bound in leather, marked with the Whitmore sigil, a serpent eating its own tail. He opened it, March 3rd, 1866. We have made the pact. The bloodline will continue, bound not by flesh, but by shadow. We, the keepers of the veil, have sealed our fate. David's fingers froze. That night, he dreamed of mirrors, endless mirrors, and within them, himself, but not quite. They smiled when he didn't. They blinked out of rhythm, and in the center mirror, the largest something moved behind his reflection, a hand, with his face below the manor. The truth was never buried, it was sealed. The next morning, David couldn't shake the image of that hand, his hand reaching from behind the mirror. The manor felt colder, the silence heavier. Every creaking floorboard seemed to whisper his name. While exploring the east wing, he stumbled across a broken grandfather clock. The hour hand pointed to 3:33 permanently. Behind it, the wallpaper was torn, revealing an old wooden door. No knob, just a carved inscription. The blood remembers. The blood reveals. He pressed his palm against it, Click, the door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The air was thick, damp, and old. Not just old in years old in feeling. Like the kind of air that hasn't been breathed in over a century. David lit a lantern and stepped into the hidden catacombs beneath the manor. Stone walls dripping with moisture, bones in the corners too small to be animal, symbols on the walls. Strange and spiraling, and then he found it. A chamber, circular, silent, and in its center a stone altar. On the walls, murals painted in blood showed generations of Whitmores offering something to a black, faceless entity. ... It had no eyes, no mouth, just teeth. On the altar was another journal, older, roughly stitched together. He opened it. We summoned it not to worship, but to bind. The darkness offered us longevity. At a price, one heir each generation. A soul for the shadow. David staggered back. A shadow on the wall moved, but he hadn't. He turned. Nothing there, but something had changed. The air, the silence, the feeling of being. Alone, he wasn't, and in the final line of the journal, the next offering shall carry the blood of Eleanor, and he shall come willingly. His blood ran cold. He was the offering beyond the mirror. Some reflections don't show what's real, they reveal what's coming. David barely slept that night. The manor seemed to breathe around him, alive with whispers, drawn back to the room with the broken grandfather clock. He found the hidden door firmly shut, but then the mirror in the hallway caught his eye. It was tall, ancient, framed in tarnished silver. It wasn't there before. He stepped closer. The glass rippled like water. He saw himself, but different, eyes darker, smile colder. Behind him, something moved. A shadow stretching from one side of the mirror to the other. A presence. David reached out and touched the glass. His hand passed through, heart pounding. He pulled it back, and the air hummed with electricity. That night, David's dreams changed. He wandered through the mirrored world. Cedar Hill, twisted and warped, colors bleeding into shadows. Faces he didn't know stared through windows, and the forest whispered secrets no one should hear. In the mirrored town, the people didn't speak. Their mouths moved silently, repeating a single word. Remember. David woke gasping. He knew now the manor, the town, the blood were bound in a loop, a curse, and the mirror was the gate. He had to cross it, but what was waiting on the other side? Written in blood. Blood remembers what the mind forgets. David felt the weight of the mirror's secret pressing on him. Every moment spent in Cedar Hill pulled him deeper into its shadow. That night, the journal he found in the catacombs seemed to glow faintly, as if alive. He opened it again, this time reading more carefully. The words told of a dark pact, a ritual where the bloodline was bound to a shadowy entity. The entity demanded a carrier, one who would hold the power and curse together. David's own name appeared among the last entries, written in a hurried scrawl. The new carrier approaches. The blood awakens. The shadow stirs. His dreams grew darker. Faces of the lost whispered warnings in a language he couldn't understand but felt deep in his bones. One night, David awoke to the sound of footsteps. Faint dragging, echoing through the empty halls. He followed the sound, heart racing, to the great hall. There, the air was thick with a cold mist. In the center, a circle of ancient symbols glowed faintly red. The same symbols from the catacombs. Suddenly, shadowy figures emerged, indistinct, shifting shapes. They surrounded him, silent but menacing. A voice echoed in his mind deep, echoing, neither male nor female. You cannot run. You cannot hide. The blood calls and you will answer. David felt the pull of the ritual, the inevitability of the pact. He had a choice: accept and embrace the darkness, or fight and risk losing himself forever. The blood awakens. Darkness doesn't ask for permission, it demands inheritance. David could feel the shadows tightening around him like a noose. The manor's walls seemed to pulse with a heartbeat, not his own. Every whisper, every creak, every cold breath was a reminder that the pact was alive. Determined, David returned to the stone altar in the catacombs. He carried with him the photograph of Eleanor, the woman he now knew was his real mother. The shadows swirled and thickened, forming vague shapes, faces he recognized from his dreams and the journal's pages. They spoke without words. The entity, the faceless thing with teeth, manifested slowly, its form flickering between shadow and solid. David felt its gaze pierce through him. You are the heir. The bloodline's final vessel. To reject the pact is to perish. To accept is to awaken. David's heart thundered, but he also felt something else, a spark of defiance. He raised his voice. I am not a prisoner of your curse. I am more than blood. The entity paused. The shadows recoiled. Light pierced the darkness, and for the first time, the manor felt still, but David knew. The battle was only beginning beyond the veil. Some doors close forever. Others open into nightmare. The next morning, Cedar Hill seemed almost normal, but David knew better. He packed the photograph, the journals, and the box. Before leaving, he glanced once more at the mirror. His reflection smiled back, but with eyes that carried centuries of pain and power, he whispered, I will return. When the blood calls again, as he drove away, the manor faded into the mist. But deep in the woods, something stirred, a shadow without a face, waiting for the next heir.